There we go. I will turn it over to you, Jane.
Thanks, Catherine, and welcome everybody, and a few familiar faces as well. So good to see you again. So I'm going to share my screen, and one thing to say is that let me just get that up for you. So one thing to say is we have got some little quizzes as we go through the presentation today. So we'll see how it goes. If you actually have your phone, um, there is a QR code that you can scan that will take you right through to the quiz page. And there's also a link with a code that you can put in. So if you don't have your phone and if you're not feeling very technologically kind of minded tonight, that's fine as well. Because we're quite a small group. So I think we can just see how we go. We can also use chat to get feedback. So I'm also slightly technologically challenged. So let's see where we get to. But it's good to get some feedback as well as hear a little bit about Wish and what we do and how we've worked with kind of CAGs over the last year or so and what we might be able to do with your organizations. So, as I said, Wish is a project and a partnership, part of the Cherwell Collective. We are the kind of lead partner. And what we wanted to talk about today was give you a bit of an introduction and an overview to Wish, talk about CAG's involvement, as they are a key partner in the organization. Just about what's working well. So give you some of our evaluation results over the last year or so, and our learnings, which I think are just useful anyway if you're working on nature-based or kind of social community groups or anything related to encouraging kind of more circular practices. I think some of our learnings will be interesting to you above and beyond what we've learned from the partnership point of view. We're going to look at some case studies quickly. So the kind of collaborations that we've been doing with CAG. So it just gives you a bit of a real example about how you might be able to tap into some of our support and resources. And then just show you some of our stuff to hopefully get you enthused. And again, just think a bit more practically about what Wish might be able to do, how you might be able to tap in to the things that we produce and the resources that we have. And then finally, we would really value some feedback at the end, thinking about kinds of resources, the kinds of things that would be useful in terms of support for your kind of organization. And we can have a bit of a discussion around that if we've got time at the end. So any questions before we dive in? Good to go. So what is Wish? I'm going to put the first slide up. Gone too fast there. This is our theory of change for the partnership. So basically, we are a county-wide community partnership. So we have over 30 members of the partnership, and we have many, many more informal members. And we're seeking to build infrastructure for the first truly circular economy in the UK and starting with Oxfordshire. So it's really exciting. I'll move on to who actually sits in the partnership, but we do have a very broad base in terms of our membership, including community organizations, businesses, and other more kind of loosely affiliated groups. What we're seeking to do is really think about, as a partnership, how we work on behaviors around reducing consumption and reducing waste. So you can see there around the theory of change, the outer ring of the theory of change, the outcomes, and increasing use of circular infrastructure and solutions. So that would be things like reusing, repairing, repurposing, sharing surplus, rotting, all the things that we kind of think of in terms of a more circular approach to resource use. And partnership then kind of breaks down into those that are focused on building connections to each other partners who are focused on building connections to nature. And we know that both of those things actually lead to change in how people think, how they feel, and what they do to create change themselves. Um, we're all about providing infrastructure for people and enabling people and giving them the support that they need. And we do have National Lottery funding for 5 years that has been really amazing because it just gives you that kind of sustainability to try and expand the model to learn and to grow across Oxfordshire into new areas. So thinking about the theory of change then, you can see there the pillars of the theory of change. So those areas that I just mentioned, connection to each other, connection to nature, decreasing waste and decreasing consumption. And our theory of change works on the premise that the more people feel connected to each other, the more likely they are to reduce waste. And the more they feel connected to nature, the more likely they are to reduce consumption. And we've been testing that model and learning from it over the previous kind of year or so. So it's work in progress, and we do have an evaluation framework that I'll share later, and we'll iterate the theory of change as we go. But you can see there the different core kind of partners and where they sit in those different pillars of the theory of change. And you can see CAG there sits between the intersection of connection to each other and connection to nature. Other organisations that you might know, for example, the Oxford Food Hub is in the upper right-hand corner, focused on decreasing waste. And that's another example. So that's more about the infrastructure, so kind of focusing on providing the infrastructure that people need. And then Share Oxford, for example, sitting in the bottom right-hand corner, focused on reducing consumption in terms of finding ways of people sharing, repairing, and all of those things that a lot of us are working on as well in our own organisations. So how do we do this? What we really kind of believe is that it's all about giving people the kind of small kind of uh, tools and resources that they need to understand the kind of impact of their kind of decisions, and empowering them. And one of the things that we have learned is as people feel that they have more kind of agency over their ability to know things, do things, share things, that actually they feel hope. So through the kind of research, we've learned that there's a considerable uplift in terms of well-being from being engaged with kind of collective activity around climate resilience in the community, and that in turn actually kind of addresses this issue with feeling it's too big. It's it's hopeless. I can't do anything on my own. So we're talking about really giving people the tools, the knowledge, the awareness, so that they can make better choices in terms of their decisions. So I'm just going to spend a few minutes talking about our carbon cost model because this is quite central to some of the resources and our kind of thinking and things that we can make available to other people. The carbon cost model uses the carbon footprint of a product or a project to determine its price or impact by converting that to the equivalent car miles in terms of emissions. So it's really hard for people to get their head around the idea of CO2e CAS. It's a kind of concept that's really difficult for people to think of in terms of their own lives. But they do understand the concept of the pollution that's generated by a car, for example. So actually by converting the emissions to the equivalent car miles, it gives them a really handy tool and benchmark in terms of understanding what the different levels of pollution are related to the different levels of choices they're making. So the first little pop quiz, let's see how we go with this. We have a tool here where you may have used in the past, where you can scan a QR code. You can also go to the website, mentimeter.com, and pop that code into the top bar. And there's a question. So we want to know, in your opinion, what's the average carbon footprint of a typical fast fashion garment? So here we're thinking about the carbon cost of fashion. And I'm going to swap over to the quiz now, if you bear with me. Okay, so I can see, has everybody got access to the Mentimeter?
I could access it via the QR code.
I
Just
can see the three of you. Yes, thank you.
I've got Mentimeter sort of in my phone, but it says to log in, so I'm not quite sure if I got to go through the process of
Oh, no, you shouldn't have to. There should be a little bubble at the top that just says join a live poll, and you just put that code in.
right.
Don't worry, Linda, if it's
Right.
problematic.
Coming up with logging in on the one I'm looking at. I'll just make a note on a pad here
Yeah,
instead.
make a note on a pad. Let's do it old school. I think that's a really good approach.
Right.
Okay, great. Has everybody else kind of voted who wants to vote? Okay, so we've got 2 votes for 10. We've got 1 vote for 25. Linda, what do you think?
16. I put down 16.
16 in the middle. Okay, so let's go back to the other. I can reveal that if we go back to presenting, it's 16. So well done, Linda, there. It's an average of around 16 kilograms of CO2e. So when people look at that, they think, yeah, interesting, but what does that mean? So then converting that to the equivalent car miles in terms of the equivalent emissions, that would be the same as driving 40 miles in a car. So that was kind of a demonstration of how the carbon cost of fashion in this case, but how we can actually adapt and apply that model to different areas. And the idea being that people can relate to the choices they're making, especially when you start looking at different comparisons and choices that they can make. So just a kind of a tool that can be used in different areas. So we've got a different one here. Actually, Linda, while you're on this slide, if you go back to the Mentimeter webpage, just see if there's a little bubble in the top asking you to put a code in, because if there is, you can pop that code at the bottom right-hand corner in there. Other people can scan the QR code.
I'm not very IT literate,
No,
I'm afraid.
don't worry. Don't worry. Well, I think,
write it
yes,
down a pad.
write it down, and it's fun to actually have some kind of real sort of numbers coming into the room. So if everybody else wants to go to that question, so we're just going to vote on this. I'm going to move the Mentimeter presentation on. So what percentage of our carbon cost is food? What do I think about that? What do we think?
And Julie, just to say welcome, and you can either scan the QR code that's on the slide, or you can go to mintymeter.com and enter that code. So, and if you can't do either, then you can be like Linda and go old school and just write your answer down on paper and share it. So
Great. Okay, so we've got 3 for 30%, 1 at 50%. Linda, what do you think?
I've got 40%.
40%? Poor old Linda's on the spot because everybody else is anonymous. Welcome, Julie. Is it making sense to you?
you're on
So
mute, Julie.
Yeah, sorry, I had a family commitment, so I'm coming in late. So I have scanned
good.
the
Nice.
thing.
We're just having a little pop quiz, talking about the carbon cost of food. So what percentage of our carbon cost is food? Okay, 4 at 30%, 1 at 50%. And Linda, remind us what you said?
40.
40. Yeah,
Yeah.
amazing. Okay, so have a look at the answer. You have to bear with me while I fiddle with my tech. Here we go. So it is 30%, between 25 to 30%. So food production is responsible for 25 to 30% of the carbon cost of our lives. So it's quite a big number, probably bigger than most people think. So then thinking about how the tool works. So obviously, you can see there that we've got different carbon cost resources in different areas. So last year we did a lot of work on the carbon cost of fashion. We had a sustainable fashion show at Blenheim Palace, which we repeated this year, which was great fun. All of the catwalk items were made out of repurposed and upcycled and even sort of compostable clothes and materials. And we had an exhibit that went with it. And it used this kind of model of carbon costing to help people understand the different choices that they could make. We've done a lot of work. In fact, our work on carbon cost started with food. And obviously, you know, that's something that's a really emotive issue. So it really engages people. And this is just an example of how I can think about where all of those different emissions come from. So thinking about the humble cheeseburger, a lot of things involved in the production of a cheeseburger, including, you know, animal feed, transport, land use, processing, packaging, land usage itself, and all of that generates the equivalent of about 2.5 kilograms of CO2e. So again, people kind of look at that and think, interesting. What does that mean? So when you can convert that to car mile equivalent of 10 miles, it becomes real for people. And that seems like quite a lot. So when I eat my cheeseburger, that's the same as me driving 10 miles in my car. And hopefully the light bulbs are beginning to go off for people when they get to this point. And then we've got some resources that people can use, and we've had a lot of fun with these, and actually kids really love it. So we've done some really great kind of interactive things where we've got out plastic bits of, you know, food, you know, and use the resources to get people to think about the meal that they're going to have in the evening or their lunchbox and what they've got in their lunchbox, and then swapping things in and swapping things out to kind of make choices around that. And you can see there you've got a really high number in the top left-hand corner around beef, lamb, lobster, even if you're lucky, at 8 equivalent car miles. And then you've got chicken, poultry, fish at around 2, and then you've got beans, chickpeas, and lentils at under 0.5. And then you've got your various kind of vegetables and fruit and pasta and so on. So it becomes very obvious to people quite quickly that red meat is going to have a really high kind of equivalent in terms of car miles and emissions. So this is when people really start to see the value of the carbon cost model, because they can make choices and they can swap things in and they can swap things out. And we're actually working at the moment on a carbon cost of food app. And we've been testing this very much in beta stage at the moment, with the idea that people will be able to work out the carbon cost of their meals or recipes, or maybe it was something that we would do in partnership with cafes and restaurants, for example, or even with a big retailer, and look at carbon cost labeling. And that would be the kind of gold standard if we were able to get one of the big retailers to adopt a carbon cost labeling in the same way that they've got nutritional labeling. So it'd be really helpful to get some of your feedback at this stage. So asking the question here, where do you think carbon cost labeling for food is most relevant for you? So back to the old Mentimeter, and if we move that question along, we've got some choices there. So where would labeling be most relevant for you? So would it be in person at grocery stores? Would it be, for example, something that you might like to use online with online recipes? Or actually maybe it's something that you'd rather see printed on restaurant menus? And finally, thinking about online ordering apps for stores, if there was a carbon cost labeling for food there, where would you like to see it?
And is that, in terms of relevant, are you thinking like where it might influence your decision making sort of thing?
Yeah, so where you think you actually have the headspace and where you think it might be useful to know the carbon cost of the food choices that you're making. So is it where you're buying food at a grocery store? Is it when you're thinking about cooking and you're looking at recipes? Is it in restaurants? So yeah, where would you find it most useful in your own use?
You can only pick one, and I want to pick more than one.
Yeah, we're going to be tough. So we've got quite an even spread there, actually. So, oh, wow, yeah. We've got a very even spread. So in person at grocery stores, online recipes, restaurant menus, and online ordering apps for stores. Linda, how about you?
It would be grocery stores.
Grocery stores. Okay, so more people thinking about grocery stores. So that's really interesting and really useful to know. What do people think about the idea of actually partnering with a retailer so that they adopt carbon cost labeling? Would that be helpful? So you would actually get that on your products?
Yeah, I think that would. I mean, there's times when you pick up vegetables, I know I do it without thinking. And then I get it home and think, oh God, I wish I hadn't bought that, because I've just realized where
Yeah.
and it's quite discreet actually, isn't it? Often the place of origin.
Is
And then you can just, even without knowing the science, you think that's been flown in from Peru. That's ridiculous. I don't need that. And I wouldn't have bought it. It's almost like it needs one of those kind of like red, green, amber warnings like you get for sugar or fat or something.
yeah, exactly that.
Yeah, absolutely agree. And I think there could be a really nice like seasonality space with it as well. Like often you would then be able to pick, you would assume that if they were local growers and in season, then they would be the best options as well.
That's a really, really good point. Was that Jess?
Yes. Sorry, I'm muted myself again.
Thanks, Jess. Yeah, that's a really good point, thinking about seasonality. So you have that sort of option, the transport option, obviously. Understanding that and how that impacts on your carbon cost as well. Amazing. Okay, let's move on. So really helpful to get that feedback, but I hope you get an idea of something that maybe when you first hear about it, it sounds quite complicated, but actually it's really simple. So it's very easy to use, and we've kind of provided some tools that make it very kind of user friendly. So I'm going to move on, hand over to Catherine, and just give you a bit of a taste of how we've been working with CAG over the last year and a half. Over to you, Catherine.
Thank you, Jane. I will be quite brief. So most of what we've been doing in terms of the funding that we received through this project has gone back out to community groups to support them in their engaging people with nature. So on the left, you can see the grantees that we've been working with. And then we just actually have finalized an update or a kind of progress report on year one that's on our website, which I took a screenshot of. You can see there on the right, and I'll send that link around if anyone wants to read more. But again, sort of the idea, the theory of change model that Jane mentioned earlier about sort of the stronger the connections are to nature, the more likely that people are to make decisions that are in the best interest of the environment. So it's sort of true to the CAG mission and true to a lot of the work that we're doing, especially on connecting people who have barriers to accessing and engaging and sort of experiencing that nature connection. And then we've also been supporting WISH through there's a Good Waste Charter group. And so we've been participating in that. And yeah, a few other bits and bobs, but this is the main sort of thrust of our work through the program. And as part of it, then Jane's also been able to work with some of the grantees to develop case studies and to sort of upskill them in their capacity to kind of do that storytelling and evaluation. So I think that's been really useful and powerful as well. So short and sweet from me. But if you have any questions about that, or again, I'll send out the link. And if you have any follow-up, please do get in touch.
Thanks, Catherine.
And last year, I should say, I think the grantees last year, Jane, I said I would say this, so I will. I think they reached about 2,000 people. So, and again, most of those kind of people who aren't normally kind of engaging with nature, don't have the resources, the capacity, the links to transportation, et cetera, to do that. So that's great.
Yeah, there's some really powerful stories. Speaking from having gone around and met a lot of the participants and the people who run the programs themselves, very humbling kind of stories, very powerful. So that leads very neatly on to evaluation. So we just wanted to share a little bit of our learnings. And as I said, I think this will be pertinent to you whether or not you're using or thinking of using kind of WISH resources. It's just relevant to thinking about how nature connection and connection to others impacts on environmental behavior. So just some numbers. I'm not going to go through these in detail, but just to kind of make the point that obviously, because we work through a partnership, we are able to have a much wider impact. That is kind of demonstrated in the numbers. These are from year one. So we're actually coming to the end of year two now. So we'll be updating these and they'll be much bigger. But even in year one, we saw some great numbers and we were really, really pleased with the results. And you can see that they're in the different areas of impact that we talked about related to that theory of change. We've spent quite a lot of time thinking about what we're learning and thinking about our model. So where we've landed so far is that we've learned that well-being is a combination of social connection and nature connection and a sense of climate agency. But one of the things we know about our community, not everybody, but many people in our community don't start off particularly connected to each other. So quite a lot of people who maybe are feeling isolated. Obviously, the WISH program kind of started in that post-COVID period where a lot of people were feeling quite isolated, working in a different way, or were out of work, or had fallen out of education, that well-being potentially was something that had taken a blow, and quite a lot of people actually engaging in some of the projects and programs as a way of feeling more connected with others, and acknowledging that actually their well-being had suffered. We also see that there are real barriers to climate agency, and these can be financial, and they can also relate to things just people being busy, so a lack of time, not having time to do things in a certain way or make certain choices, um, and what we touched on earlier, this sort of sense maybe of feeling that the problem's too big, and I can't make a difference. So we know that those barriers exist, and that's why we work to increase social connection and connection to nature and build that climate agency. And our research to date indicates that that will have a real impact on well-being as well. A little bit of data there, just to let you know what we do. We do a fairly large scale survey once a year that goes through our partnership. We also do depth interviews, and we've spent quite a lot of time this year, as Catherine mentioned, recruiting and training partners and volunteers to do the interviews themselves, so that we can just get that scale and cover more people. And what we have found in year one was that social connections really help move people towards more sustainable behaviours. And equally, that we've seen a correlation, as Catherine touched on, when people feel more connected to nature, they care more about the environment, and they're more likely to take pro-environmental choices. And that's just a snapshot of data where you can see that some food consumption choices correlation with a stronger connection to nature. So some of this might sound quite obvious, but what we're trying to do is produce evidence that tests some of the assumptions that probably most of us intuitively feel if we're working in kind of nature-based or circular programs. We're at sort of at the analysis stage in terms of year two, so it's really early days. But again, we're seeing actually social connection in the year two data being really important. So social connection linking to pro-environmental behaviours. So for example, people with higher social connection around 3 times more likely to report environmental shopping decisions, so shopping secondhand, and waste-related behaviours. And also we're seeing a kind of virtuous circle. So what's bringing people to groups is improvements in social connection and well-being. So they feel that they're more connected to the community. They feel that they're in a better place mentally. They feel more confident. And because they enjoy the participation, they're coming back. And as a kind of byproduct of that, then the group kind of reinforces behavior that's more likely to reduce consumption and engage people with the environment. So you get that consumption reduction as a positive outcome from the sort of virtuous circle that's created by feeling more connected and that higher sense of well-being. And through the analysis of the Nature Connection Index and looking at our programs around nature connection across the partnership, we can see really strong benefits related to well-being. And also that nature connection programs are providing knowledge and pathways to reduce consumption and waste. And again, doing things together and learning together, really kind of facilitating that sense of capacity and knowledge and agency. So some encouraging signals from year two. We've developed an evaluation framework, and we have adapted that working with CAG partners, and it sort of ladders up. So it sort of starts from a basic monitoring level through monitoring of engagement, measuring learning, and at the top level, actually looking to measure behavior. And we've got different resources and templates that can help with that evaluation, but it's all designed to match with the resources and capacity of individual organizations. So some people might want to stay right at level 1 and 2. Other people might want to explore how to really think about level 4, 5, and 6 and learn from what's worked in terms of the framework across the partnership. But we can help people and support them in their evaluation based on what we've learned. We've also done some work over the last year and a half on greater inclusion in terms of our evaluation. So we want to make sure that people feel heard. And surveys are notoriously difficult, particularly if you're working in nature-based settings. They're too long. If you're working with people who are neurodiverse or have English as a second language, they can be really hard to understand. Hence, we've developed an inclusive survey, which is really simple and visual. We tested it with our community and with different members of our community. And we've also invested in printing some resources. So we've been testing that with some of the nature-based programs that CAG are providing funding with in the field to see how that is working in practice. And then the peer-to-peer storytelling that Catherine talked about. So training and engaging people. And what we found actually is by training volunteers and partners to do interview gathering is that the quality of the impact stories are much higher because that trust is really there. So people are much more willing to share, what's really going on, both in terms of, their lives around the program, but what they've really got out of the program and the changes that they've experienced just being part of those programs. So again, we do kind of offer interview training, and we've got templates that people can use as well to create really great case studies, which can be used for evaluation, but actually they're really great for marketing as well, and for fundraising applications because funders love case studies. So what have we done with different CAG partners? We just thought we'd give you a flavour of some of the work that we've done working with other CAGs around the network, so it makes it a bit more real for you. So in evaluation, we've adapted the framework, and we've also provided consultancy and training. So for example, we worked with Sustainable Wantage to adapt the evaluation framework, and they now have their own evaluation framework and a system of metrics that they use to measure and monitor their activity. We also supported them with developing a theory of change. And we're currently working with BBOUT and training them, and they're using our resources and our evaluation framework to test and evaluate their Nature Buddies pilot. So we look forward to the findings of that over the next few months. So there's that whole area of evaluation where we've been working with CAGs. Exhibits. So we do produce a number of exhibits. The biggest is the Carbon Cost of Fashion exhibit. So you can see some photos here. That was something that was trialed as part of Sustainable Fashion Week in 2024. And then we took it around various places in Oxfordshire, including Transition Shipping Norton and Barford Environment Network. It's a way of getting people to interact with the exhibit. So that some of those questions that you saw earlier, so the questions about the t-shirts and the equivalent car miles, we've got some of those displayed as part of the exhibit in an interactive way. And we've got a sustainable fashion quiz as well, which works on an iPad. So it's all about getting people engaged, and kind of behavioral psychology indicates that, people have to really understand the implications of the choices that they're making to be able to really start to change their kind of behavior, their attitudes and their behavior around what they do. So our exhibit is designed with that in mind. And then we have a whole load of kits and tutorials. So we really see knowledge sharing as very important in terms of catalyzing behavior change. We've worked with CAGs, an example here, working with Sustainable Duns Tew, and just providing resources that they used in Great Big Green Week, many of which were nature-based because it was an outdoor activity. But we've also provided resources for cookery classes and courses that they've done as well. Okay, so enough of me talking. I think we'll have a little pop quiz again now. One of the things that we're working on at the moment is the carbon cost of travel. And I thought it would be interesting to get some feedback from you about what might be useful in terms of the development of this area. So we know from feedback from the community that they would really like more information about the impact of their travel choices. We know it's a big area, so it's 31% of emissions in the UK. And road transport is contributing to 90% if you exclude international air travel of that figure. And you can see that here, where you can see the ranking of the different modes of transport, and diesel car and petrol car right up there, actually above long haul and short haul flights in terms of their kind of carbon footprint emissions. So some surprising things that actually people really would appreciate some help with. This is just a visualization that shows maybe why cars are a big problem when you look at the sort of density of the cars. But when you take the cars off the road and you look at the people on that road, they're actually quite spread out. And then you look at how that then replicates if you put them in a bus, or if you put them on a train, or if you put them on a bicycle, they're not emitting anything, obviously. But even if you put them on a bus and you put them on the train, they're much more densely kind of clustered. So aside from the emissions of cars, it demonstrates the issue in terms of density or otherwise of transport. So what we're hoping to do is give people some tools, give people some kind of interactive sort of resources that they can use, and give them some advice. So, for example, thinking about the different comparisons between walking, biking, and using trains and buses. So what people can do in terms of making kind of choices around their transport. So it would be really, really great to know from you, what support do you need to make more sustainable travel choices locally? So just thinking now, not so much as a CAG representative or of your local organization, but for you kind of personally in your life, what support do you need to make more sustainable travel choices locally? And you can go back to the Mentimeter or scan the code, and we will have a look at the choices that are available there. So more public transport, more frequent public transport, more information on where to find sustainable travel options locally. So things like e-bike rentals, for example. More information on the carbon impact of transport options so that people can help make informed choices. Cheaper public transport which serves more areas, or other. Interested to know what you think. So we've got, again, quite a range. So cheaper to public transport at the moment is the winner, but public transport in all its various iterations. So public transport which serves more areas, cheaper public transport, more frequent public transport. And one person saying more information. That kind of indicates that it's really about the infrastructure from what you guys are saying. I don't know if anyone's got anything they want to add to that. Anything that you want to say about that?
I don't mind jumping in.
Fairly self-explanatory. Go ahead, Jess.
Yeah, I was the lone one that said about the more information. That was purely because I moved here not that long ago and I didn't have a bike, and I could take the bus, but I wanted a bike. But finding out where I could hire a bike long term, and that, like, as a very new person into a new place, yeah, was a mini barrier for a bit until, like, luckily I work in a sector that didn't take me very long to ask around.
Yeah.
But it was an interesting one if you're new in the area. Yeah, my option really was bus or park and ride. But they were quite, yeah, I definitely think coming from London area as well, when the
Yeah.
buses are crazy that it's £3 for one stop. It's mad.
Yes, definitely.
yeah.
Probably a bit of shock.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Jess. So yes, that is really interesting as well, that the infrastructure is the thing that people really feel is maybe the gap at the moment. So that relates to obviously thinking about how partnership can work at a kind of policy level as well. So as Catherine kind of alluded to, we have got a waste charter, which is more about working on policy. So as well as working at a sort of a community level, we're also interested at working at a systems or policy level. So it's really interesting to know that that's where you feel you need support in terms of transport. Okay, so let's come out of Mentimeter. I'm gonna just present a couple of extra things, and then I'd like to just have a bit of time at the end where we can get a bit of a discussion going about what support generally you feel might be helpful, having heard what we do in the Wish partnership. So I just want to whiz through these slides here. We've got things that we can offer in terms of resources. So we've got our exhibits, we've got the carbon cost of fashion, we've got an interactive carbon cost of food exhibit, and we're working on a carbon cost of travel exhibit. Resources that you can download. So we have got a bunch of nature-based resources, which can help in terms of things like building your own wormery, composting, but also more interactive things that you can use with your groups if you're running an event or activity that can help get them engaged, and likewise kids and families as well to have a bit of fun. And then we have a number of sort of resources that help with repurposing. So these are based on using, reusing, repurposing, and having fun. And they're just things that you can print out and use with your own groups, and hopefully not do too much work. So they're using, things like old t-shirts. So use an old t-shirt to make a tote bag, use a milk carton to make a scary seagull to scare away the, actually, I think it's more like an eagle, a scary eagle to scare away the birds on your allotment, that sort of thing. And the newest development is what we're calling the Wish Kit. So the Wish Kit is a DIY climate exhibit in a box. Well, that's how we like to think of it. So it's usable in any space, and it turns any small space into a centre for climate action. So it can be used to spread ideas, to spark discussions, to inspire change. And it doesn't actually need, if you haven't got a space, a permanent space to use it, it's very portable. So say you were actually running an event in the church hall for a weekend, you could have a DIY box, take it along, unpack it, put your little exhibit up, get out your engagement activities, and then pack it up at the end and take it away. So it's very, very portable. That is something that we would really like to get feedback on. What would make that useful? What would make that useful for you? And we'll share this at the end. We've got various ways of signing up. So you can receive a Wish Kit. That's in production at the moment, so it's not quite ready. We're still in development. Exhibits, so signing up to host the travel exhibit, which is the next exhibit that we're working on. And then just access to our wide range of tutorials as well. And then we'd love to get your feedback. So if we share the slides at the end of the session today, you can click on the links and just go from there. But what I'd really like to do now is just get a bit of feedback from you on what format you'd like Wish Resources to be, if indeed you would like Wish Resources. And secondly, what ideally would you want or need from Wish, if anything? So maybe fill it in on the Mentimeter, but I'd like to have a little bit of a discussion. But it'd be great if you could fill it in on the Mentimeter so we've got a record of what you've said. And then we've got 10 minutes, I think. Is that right, Catherine? Where we can get people's feedback.
Yeah, I think we said we'd wrap 1:45, so that's great.
Can I give mine verbally?
You can definitely give yours verbally, Linda.
Because
I'm just
I,
gonna.
on occasions, come up to Kidlington to raid your supplies of resources because I find them very valuable for events going on in Banbury. We've got at least 4 occasions where we have a general sort of exhibit at a venue. So because we've got so many different projects, we try to sort of have materials, and it works very well. But because there's some things that we haven't got off the ground, like the fashion repurposing at the moment, just because we don't run it, it's not something that we have been trying to. So getting some of your resources to try and highlight to people, because we're trying to find other people that would like to sort of, get involved and start running them. So I've always
Great.
found your resources excellent. And so the frustration is I sometimes come up to Oxford, and so I would stop up at Kidlington to pinch things. But now I don't know where to come. I mean, where do you keep everything? Where's your headquarters?
Okay, so we're now in opposite the big the big Sainsbury's in Kidlington. So it is, if you Google it, it's called Wish, Waste Innovation
I know the
Station
shop. Sorry, I
headquarters.
know the shop opposite Sainsbury's. I have been there, so I did get some of the sheets which were sort of repurposing, T-shirts and things. I had some of those ones, but some of these other things that you're showing, is there a
Oh,
general
the
supply
exhibit,
there, or
the exhibits and so on.
yes?
Yes. So what I would suggest is when we circulate the um, sheet, there's a feedback form there where you can actually register your interest in certain things, so that we can then kind of contact you and find out what you want. Because obviously with some of the exhibits, so for example, the fashion exhibit is quite big. So we did take it to Transition Shipping Norton, and as I said, it went to Barford as well. But maybe for that kind of exhibit that needs to be adapted, whereas other ones are a bit more portable and a bit more usable. And the idea with the Wish kits is obviously that it will be very portable, so it can be used in a very small space. So yeah, what I'd suggest, Linda, is that you fill in that feedback form, but also I will share the contact details of our administrator, because the best thing to do would be also to contact them and just say I'm interested in X, Y, and Z, and actually book it, book it in. And that's what we did with the fashion exhibit in Barford. We actually went backwards and forwards on email and just found the best time.
We've got quite a few volunteers that are quite sort of involved with the travel. They're known as BATS, Banbury Active Travel.
Oh, great.
So they promote cycle paths, walking, etc. So when they join us on a stand, they look for information to show people exactly how much, the car miles, etc. So having those information sheets would be very useful, definitely. So is that again
Right.
something I need to go through the administrator, or are they available if I was to pop into the Wish office?
Yeah, we're working. So the transport resources we're working on at the moment. So that's kind of work in progress. So I think register your interest on the sheet. And if you're interested in the exhibit, but also if I share the administrator's email, then you can just contact her and just say when they're available. It would be amazing to get hold of these. I think what we'll probably do is produce a full catalogue and send it round when we have the Wish kit available. So we'll be proactive in terms of actually disseminating that to people, to say we've got the Wish kit, here are the resources. So we'll have another round of promotion. But I think for the transport stuff, definitely register your interest on the form, and boots and bootstraps and braces, email our administrator.
Thanks. Okay, thanks very much.
Any other thoughts then? So what ideally do you want? So I can see that we've got one suggestion in terms of format, so access to online resources and how-to sheets for activities. Is that online resources in terms of just keeping them digital, or is that access to things online that you can print off?
That was me, Jane. I think
Hey, Jenny.
access to things that we can print off.
Okay.
Yeah.
Amazing. So you will find when you go through to the resources, we do have a whole folder of those which you can kind of print off. So a lot of those are actually, particularly those repurposing ones and the garden nature-based ones, you can just go to that and kind of print those off. But we will be doing more as well. So again, anything specific, just kind of register your interest and we'll make sure to get in contact with you when they're ready. Anything else in terms of format that people want to feedback on? So does that sound the most useful? Okay, so information that we can put in at our refill station for people to take a look at. Also, maybe the wish kit for interactive educational discussion at our repair cafes. Is that Marston?
Hi, yes, that was
Yeah,
me.
amazing.
Does
Ama-
that sound appropriate? Sorry, I wasn't quite clear
Yes.
what was on in the wish kit. Is that the kind of
Yes,
thing?
definitely. It would be definitely that kind of thing. So it'd be printable resources and activity, small scale kind of activities, but using some of the ideas that we've discussed so that they're fun and interactive. And I think that would work really well in that kind of refill station. So people could, it could be almost like a semi-permanent thing if you wanted, or it could be something that you
Okay.
put up for a period of time.
Okay, so maybe I'll have to be in touch to figure out how we can get hold of something. Yeah, our refill station is like self-service, so it just sits there in a shed. So it's quite, I mean, it's open to the public, but it's fairly safe and covered. But then the repair cafes, we get lots of people obviously who come in for repairs, but often there's a lot of time people are sitting around, waiting, and I'm not a repairer. So if there was something I could do to help engage people, yeah, that would be great.
Oh, amazing. Okay. Well, we talked some more, Jane. I'm just around the corner from you as well
Great,
in
thanks.
Marston.
Great.
Got a quick question, Jane, if I may. My
Yeah,
ears, I came in late, so I'm
sure.
feeling a little bit discombobulated. But you mentioned about the food
Mm.
waste. That seemed to be when people were ticking what
Mm.
they wanted to learn more about food waste was the top one that seemed to motivate people.
Yeah.
I think what would be really useful for newish groups like ours is, we sort of spend some time throwing ideas around, and then it all sounds really great. And then you sort of go, yeah, but how many people will that need to run that? And how much is it really going to cost? And what kind of room would we need? And so I think it's that kind of thing. Like if you've done an event around food waste, for example, it's that kind of nitty gritty kind of like,
Yeah.
you basically need a hall that's roughly this big. You could accommodate, your ideal number of attendees would be 20. You need about this much money in the budget, some sort of how-to checklist thing so that we
Yeah.
can look at an
Interesting.
event like that and go, actually, yeah, we could manage that, or no, that's beyond us at the moment.
Yes, I
We-
really like that, Julie.
Learning from you so that it helps us to see what to jump on or what to sort of perhaps put on the back burner for a while, if that makes sense.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. That's a really good suggestion. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Any other, so I think that kind of falls into the camp of what ideally would you want from Wish to support you. Any other thoughts on that from anyone else? Nothing on the Mentimeter, but it'd be great just to jump in. Anything else that you think that would be amazing, either because you've heard that we do it or because you think you should suggest that we do it?
Okay, I'm going to jump in again. Another thought is where in a lot of communities there are a lot of businesses who have a lot of good stuff that could be useful for groups, but they don't know how. They don't know who in their community needs it, wants it, could use it. So an example I had in my community a while back was a big, very powerful, rich company was changing all their colours, and so they were just going to get rid of all their furniture and just multiple thousands of pounds worth of stuff. And it was just by luck in a conversation that I was talking to them, and so all this wonderful stuff went to the local school. But otherwise, it was gonna be carried away in lorries, taken to goodness knows where, maybe smashed up, maybe sold for a fraction of what it was worth. And it's that kind of thing that I think our communities have an awful lot of resources that people have, and they would dearly love to pass on, but they don't know who to
Yes.
pass them on to. So there's that kind of, the resource is there, the need is there, but it's
Yeah.
how you join people together.
Yes, I think that's a really, really good point as well, Julie. That does relate to the work that we're doing on the Good Waste Charter. We're working with kind of businesses, and we're at the beginning of that process, but it has come up as an idea. So some kind of hub where it would almost be where you would produce an inventory of furniture, equipment, things that businesses had no need for any longer, but were in good repair. And then a list of people who want things, and it's almost like a kind of brokering, warehousey type operation. I think you're absolutely right. It's that sort of matchmaking job in a way, where you've got things that are just going to go to landfill or goodness knows where, and they could be well used by somebody locally. And actually, it's a solution for businesses as well. Solves their problems too. So, yeah, nice thought, and a good build on certainly things that we've been hearing from businesses themselves. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So I think we're nearly out of time. Has anyone got any burning issues? Anything that you want to ask or anything that you want to share that we haven't talked about? No? Fantastic. Thank you very much for giving up your time on this very cold Thursday evening. Catherine, I don't know if you've got anything that you want to add before we release our lovely group.
No, just another round of thanks both to everyone for showing up and also you, Jane, for presenting. I think that was really informative. And again, hopefully some kind of tangible things that some of you can walk away with to aid in your efforts in your local groups. And then the only other thing I would add is when you close the Zoom link, there should be a little survey that comes up. If you wouldn't mind taking, I think it'll probably take like a minute. It's mostly multiple choice kind of thing to fill out. That would be useful. But otherwise, yeah, I think, Jane, did you put your email maybe in the chat if anyone wants to get a hold of you afterwards?
Yeah, I'll do that.
But,
Let me do that.
you can also email me and I can pass it along to Jane. But otherwise, no.
And shall I share the slides with a hard copy of the slides with you, Catherine? And to
Yes,
send
that'd
out
be
as well?
great. So we'll send around the slides and the link to the recording afterwards to everyone, and so I can include your email in that as well. So
amazing. Okay, well, great to see you all, and familiar faces and new faces, and we can carry on talking.
thanks so much, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks so much. Bye.
Bye.